guys, we're reading from To Be African today. And then I also have my Black Marxism book out to read from that as well. To Be African by Wade W. Nobles. In the critically acclaimed and equally critically flawed BBC documentary Africans in America, this nation was informed that the first African child born in America was named William Tucker. He was born in 1624. While attempting to describe the events and evolution of chattel slavery in America, the documentary tries to give the viewer a first-hand account of this American experience by taking excerpts from the autobiography of Oluda Equiano. I think that's how it's pronounced. OladahEquiano. The film shares Oluda's personal account of his enslavement and freedom by introducing him as a kidnapped African who becomes British and marries a British wife. In the actual writing of his autobiography, Oluda completes his saga by citing his book as Oluda, an Enslaved African. This brief commentary on the BBC documentary helps us to see several important points. The first point, which is substantiated by the necessity to pass the 14th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, is that each and every African American today, like Oluda, is technically only American by the location of our birth, and secondly by an act of law which makes us citizens. Who or what is being located in those and whose citizenship had to be ratified into law is African. The second important observation in the documentary is that while the myth makers want us to believe that the Africans, along with our culture and spirit, somehow were mysteriously transformed into something other than an African, the authentic voice of Oluda recognizes that he remains an African, albeit an enslaved African. The essential issue to note in this regard is that neither time, circumstance, conditions of cruelty and oppression, nor adopted legal status change us from being African. In effect, we are all William Tuckers. We are all Equianos. Is that how you say it? Equiano. That's his last name. That's Oluda's last name. Equiano? Is that how you pronounce it? Let me know. We are all Africans whose birthplace locates us in America. We are, in many respects, especially mentally, still enslaved Africans. Really good book I have for that one. Breaking the chains of psychological slavery. Guys, I'm a psychology major, Afro studies minor, and I specifically look at Black psychology. This is my favorite topic. I have too many favorite topics. There's never really a favorite. It's more like the umbrella topic is Black studies. My specific interest is mental, like the psychological impact of racism and oppression on Black people and what that does to people because of my own, and of course, because of my own experiences. Shit. Anyways, let's keep reading. It's a really good book, guys. When I made my library, I only have one more. You see? Oh wait, I don't know if you can see. Do you see? I have a bookshelf, so I only have this last one to put in. I made an Excel sheet of all my library books, and then I have to do the books on my iPad, and then I can share that. I'm at 140 books, I believe, and so I'm excited to get some more. Anyways, whoa. No ADHD medicine, no wake and bake. Bear with me. Anyways, in effect, we are all William Tuckers. We are all Equianos. We are Africans whose birthplace locates us in America. We are, in many respects, especially mentally, still enslaved Africans. It has, in fact, been the African in us that has been the constant, although disrespected, unrecognized, and most often misunderstood aspect of our strength and humanity. Hence, politically, economically, socially, historically, and most of all, psychologically, it is important that we understand what it means to be African. To be African in the book Souls of Black Folk, a really good one. A really, really good one that I personally need to reread because when I first read, oh my God, look at that. You see how easy it is for me to get sidetracked? Anyways, this is a really good book. I personally need to reread this because I first read this when I first entered Howard. And the Quest of the Golden Fleece is in here. You know that he did like the Silver Fleece? He did like the Quest of the Silver Fleece, where it was like, and I wish that the Silver Fleece was talked about in like high school and shit, because like, oh, I'm allowed to say that, because like learning, we'll have a discussion about that another time, and we're gonna keep reading. See that? Redirect. I'm getting better at catching myself instead of going on tangents, because I know how like annoying tangents can be to people. So in the book Souls of Black Folk, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois makes the classic and prophetic observation that the problem of the hello, I need some chapstick. That the problem for the 20th century was the problem of the color line. Dr. Du Bois went on to identify the double consciousness of the Negro, sick, which consisted of two varying ideals, one American and one Negro. And I think about that in terms of what does it mean to be a Black woman in America? Because even within, should we have this discussion? Is it like a triple consciousness? Or even thinking about being neurodivergent and like having to mask and put up a mask. I'm not saying that masking is fully bad, because if you think about Paul Laurence Dunbar or Maya Angelou, we wear the mask. Like we wear the mask that grins and smiles, that hides our but that's like a survival tactic. Like that's required. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, let me keep going. One American and one Negro. Errata, E-R-R-A-T-A, African. I think it means what Negro, i.e., I think. I'm not going to look it up. I don't want to. Whose dogged strength alone keeps us from being torn asunder. Dr. Du Bois is, and you think about that, like the souls of Black folk, what is it, like that soul that carries people despite the oppression, despite the constant violence, because of, you know what I mean? It's like, no, we still got our souls intact. We still got our culture. We still got our people. We're still alive because I am, because of, you know what I mean? Like type shit. Let me just keep going. Dr. Du Bois's observation is fundamental in two distinct ways. Firstly, it directs our attention to the African essence, whose dogged strength keeps us from being torn asunder. To be African. As we enter this new millennium, it is paramount that we return to, revisit, and recast Dr. Du Bois's prophetic observations. In returning to Dr. Du Bois's observation, we should now recognize that the problem in America is not simply a color line. The problem in America from the colonial times to the present was and has been what to do with the African. In America, there has been and remains a deep psychological fear of Black people, African people. A fear of pathological proportions, resulting in an almost complete obsession with the question, what shall be done with the African? The historical and ongoing answer to this seemingly perplexing question was to de-Africanize. Think about that. The ways in which Black people have been forced to assimilate into this dominant culture. Dominant. But like, Black people are a part of the global majority. Go Black people, go Black. Like, I'm learning about Macrumba, like on TikTok, girl. It's like Black people all up in this bitch. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of like the ways in which African culture is embedded into so many aspects of this world. It's amazing. And what does it mean to hold on to your cultural roots, your historical roots? What does that mean? Okay, let me keep going. Let me stop. We're at 9 minutes, and that's, girl, I'm surprised I haven't gone off on more tangents, but it's okay. This historical and ongoing answer to the seemingly perplexing question was to de-Africanize the African. The objective was simply to make African American people ashamed of being Black and African, and ultimately convince us of our very humanity was connected to our declaration that we are not African at all. And think about that. And think about what the Black is Beautiful movement did to people. Because like even my grandfather, he was talking to me about how being called Black was a slur. Like it used to be a slur. He's 90 years old. He was born in 1934. Like, and then now people are like, oh no, I'm Black. Big B. You know what I mean? Like, what does it mean to assimilate into a culture that is not ours? Does that, like, what is it? How much of our soul is removed from us when we assimilate into this white supremacist ideology, this Eurocentric ideology? What does that do to us internally? What does that do to us in terms of, like, who taught you to hate the color of your skin? Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? That type of thing too. Someone called me Detroit Red. I was like, yes, I'll take it. Anyways, let's keep going. It was, however, Black people's response to the experience of de-Africanization or dehumanization. Think about that. Think about the way, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, no, I'm not sorry. We're gonna go off on these tangents. Think about the ways in which the assimilation into a different culture, i.e., our example given, what is it? What's his name? Eurocentric, like, white supremacist ideology. You're removing who you are. You're stripping yourself of your humanity when you remove the cultural aspects of who you are. When you distance yourself, when you put down these Black cultural aspects to assimilate into a white supremacist culture, that's dehumanizing. That means you don't love yourself to see the value in who you are and all that came before you. Think about it. And think about what it does to someone to rehumanize themselves, to reclaim their cultural history. Like, girl, don't get me started. Okay. I did write a couple papers on this topic. I did. But I need to rewrite them because I would love to share them with people, but when I first wrote it, it wasn't good. So I need to do better. Anyways, let's keep going because we got some time. Let's come. That Du Bois noted, okay, it was, however, Black people's response to the experience of de-Africanization, or dehumanization, that Du Bois noted, acknowledged, in a sense, celebrated as a dogged strength. This dogged strength, which refused to be torn asunder, was, I would argue, our racial instinct to refuse to be de-Africanized. Because what does that mean when you still hold on to that culture? And then think about the ways in which, like, Black culture permeates into every being. Even if you're not rhythmically inclined. Me, I still got a little, like, I can't dance, but, like, I can two-step. I can Cupid shuffle. Right? Anyways. In revisiting Du Bois's observation, we must now claim the responsibility for seeing ourselves and the world as African people. We must speak to our own special truths and claim our own special meaning as human beings. Our meaning can no longer be a reaction to second-class citizenship or to the racist illusions of white people or to our own inner fear of being who we really are, i.e., African. Finally, in recasting Du Bois's edict, I believe the task of the next millennium for African American people is to be authentically African and, in doing so, create time, place, and space on a stage of humanity's future. Ours is to be African by understanding the African spirit which keeps us from being torn asunder. Right. In fact, our fundamental, like, the souls of Black folk, you know what I mean? There's this other book that's coming to my head. I'm, like, thinking about information right now in my brain, like, it's calculating behind my the wheels are turning. And there's this other book. But we'll keep going, and maybe I'll read that one too. I mean, I could read all these books, guys. I'm unemployed, so. For you too. Okay. In fact, our fundamental task as we enter the next millennium is to address the dual challenge of our existential problematic. By that, I mean we must simultaneously resist our de-Africanization, in parentheses, deculturation, while we retain our sense of Africanity, African spirit, in a non-African or, more currently, anti-African environment. At the most fundamental level of human existence, this essential problematic translates to our urgent need to heal the rupture, to extend the splendor of our African spirit. To be African possesses the collective question of how. Oh, this book. Okay. Possesses the collective question of how do we heal our race and as healthily and as healthily authentic human beings become the caretakers of the Black human family and the new world order for the next millennia. To be African. While appearing awesome, if not audacious, this charge simply means that we have a profound and deep responsibility to understand what makes us human and what kind of geopolitical, socio-cultural reality is necessary to support and advance our human possibility, probability, and potential. Ours is not the small, limited question of citizenship and civil rights. To be African requires that we as a people address the expanded and more fundamental question of our human authenticity. This is a critical concern because worldwide white supremacy is not simply a system of segregation, discrimination, and disenfranchisement. Worldwide white supremacy was and is the philosophical and ideological foundation for implementing the systematic and systemic negation and nullification of the humanity of African people throughout the world. This negation and nullification is the singular and sole goal of the Mafa. The Mafa, as noted by Marimba Ani, is a Kai Swahili word for disaster. For many, it equates African enslavement with the Jewish Holocaust. Such comparisons are erroneous. The Mafa is a continual, constant, complete, and total system of human negation and nullification. Like, think about that. The way that the Jewish Holocaust, it was one time and place. Rather, when we look at the continued ethnic genocide of Black people in America, one, if we look at it domestically, like police violence, school prison complex, environmental racism, Black maternal mortality rate, when we look at mass incarceration, when we look at housing and like so many different things, this Mafa is still going. It's still continuing. And like slavery and the effects of slavery are still present, omnipresent even. You know what I mean? Like, girl, it's not one singular time and place. It's still going. Wake up. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Right. Anyways, but when we are aware of this, when we're aware of the ways in which oppression is still perpetuated, we can become more aware of how do we find solutions for this? How do we resist against this type of oppression? Okay. What? I like this topic. This is my favorite topic. Anyways, around 18 minutes. Sorry. Fundamentally, the Mafa is the denial of the validity of African people's humanity, accompanied by, and think about that in terms with the denial of Black people's humanity. You know what I mean? Because African, Black, right. Just, because when you look at it throughout the African diaspora, think about what's going on with Haiti right now. Oh, these Haitian immigrants are doing this. Really? Are they actually? Or are you just being racist? Right. Oh, sorry. I forgot where I was at. Fundamentally, the Mafa is the denial of the validity of African people's humanity, accompanied by a collective and ever-present total disregard and disrespect for the African people and the people of African ancestry's right to exist. Think about that. Their right to exist. Their right to just be, to be human. It gives license to the continual perpetuation of a total, systematic, and organized process of spiritual and physical destruction of African people, both individually and collectively. Hence, we cannot be lulled into believing that the oppression, discrimination, and dehumanization of African American people is past history. Ending with the passage of the civil rights legislation, in parentheses. Our past in America is prologue for the future. Our past in America is prologue for the future unless we seize the authority and authorship of the definition and meaning of our collective well-being. Our essential humanity is at stake. We be African. However, to be African is an anti However, to be African in an anti-African society requires that we seize control of all of the instruments which determine that the of all the instruments which determine the lived experience and quality of life of our people. As a campaign to be African clarifies and refocuses our human imperative, can we heal the race? My answer is unequivocally yes. Not only is the answer yes, but the expanded implication of the question translates to the ultimate recognition that the real issue for us is to be African or not to be. The psychological liberation of the African mind and the worldwide development. Oh wait, I have another one. Black Skin, White Mask by Frantz Fanon. Girl. Sorry. The psychological liberation of the African mind and the worldwide development of African people, including African American people, require no less than that we, as a people, take responsibility for defining, maintaining, and controlling every institution that influences and or impacts the agency of African people. Institutions such as like music, religion, education, popular culture, political institutions, colleges, like so many things. The institution of motherhood, like motherhood now has become more individualized rather than the collective. Like it used to be very collective, and I don't want to say used to be because I feel like Black motherhood is still a very collective or communal practice. But in Black feminist thought, it discusses the ways in which motherhood, the institution of motherhood, is a collective process. It's a collective thing. You have other mothers, blood mothers, this mother, that mother, because it takes a village to help a mother raise a child. You can't just do it alone. No one does anything alone. Okay. While I believe the destructive consequences of the current path is clear and predictable, i.e. disease, pain, death, poverty, unemployment, miseducation, and dehumanization, etc., I still invite the reader to open the question to discussion, debate, and critique. Can Black professional agencies, political organizations, fraternal / sororal orders, and religious institutions confront and eradicate the systems of de-Africanization and despiritualization? Think about that. Think about that one too. Despiritualization of African people without addressing the question of to be African. Can we create a society that maximizes the human possibility and potential of our children without addressing what it means to be African? Can we provide education, social services, economic development, healthcare, political power, and ultimately even our connection to the divine without understanding the Africanness which defines our essential humanity and well-being? Can we? I believe not. We as a people must take charge of the systems of socialization and education for our people. As a collective effort towards a common destiny, we must come together to create the programs and processes that will provide the information, skills, beliefs, and values that will guarantee the development of our children and the permanent advancement of our people. The Reverend Dr. Martin? What was I going to say? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed that while he personally might not get to the promised land, his beloved Black people would be triumphant and get to the promised land. I believe that the promised land for the beloved will be found in the recognition of our Africanity. And while some of us, like Martin King, may not get there, we as a people will get there, and our eyes shall see the glory of the coming of the Lord. We African American people can get to the mountaintop, and we can build, by our own wit and wisdom, a new world order where we can understand and express what it means to be African. We can heal the rupture and extend the splendor. This we must do ourselves. This we must do for ourselves, our children, and the ancestors. We be African, to be African. Written March 29th, 1999, from Ghana, West Africa. Next we got To Be African by Kobe KK Kambone. So I'll record that too since we're here. But I'll pause here and then I'll post another. Thanks for listening, y'all.